Guys, welcome to my fall recommendation video. We have to get this video started because I'm literally here like cramming this into my schedule because I don't have time. I'm gonna start with standalones and then go into series. So anyway, the first book I have is If We Were Villains by Emma Rio. This book was really popular, I think, towards the end of quarantine, if I'm not mistaken. Time has just lost all meaning. But anyway, yeah, and it was really popular and rightfully so. It's like The Secret History, except it's much less like convoluted, like much less pretentious if you really didn't enjoy that aspect. I personally like that aspect of The Secret History. I never finished the book, but I did like it. But I feel like this is just a more modern version, and I feel like more people enjoy it. And it's very dark academia, very like Shakespeare and plays and theater and like a group of friends, it's popular. Like the second book is actually a book that I haven't actually ever talked about, I don't think, and it's A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. And guys, this was my first 5-star read of the entire year. It was like I was sobbing. I couldn't stop crying. I told everyone I know about this book. It was basically one of the best pieces of literature I've ever read in my entire life. Like, it was so good. And it's like one of the only books I've ever read for school that I like enjoyed reading, which, it's shocking. If you've ever had to read like an assigned reading, then you know what I'm talking about. Like, this was so good, and it was so like heartbreaking, and I cried. Like, I started crying from page 60, and it's like a 300-page book, so do the math. But essentially it's not, I can't really explain what it's about because it follows like multiple storylines. But it's about this girl. It starts with this girl named Mariam who, you know, grew up in this little village in Afghanistan, and it's kind of historical fiction, and it has like really, really strong themes of like friendship between these two women, and it also has like kind of a romance, but that wasn't really a big part of it, and it wasn't like a driving force like it usually is for me. It was like the plot and the relationship between Mariam and this other girl named Lila, and their relationship with each other and with the world around. It was, oh my god, it's so, I can't talk about it. It's so beautiful. Like, trust me, you guys have to read this book. Next, I have Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabriel Zevin. And this book I read last year, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I read it last year, and I really, really enjoyed it. I gave it like 4 stars. I thought it was really well written, and it was just really like, it's had a lot of like concepts of like race, about like race and being a minority and being like half of something, like being, why biracial? Why could I just not think of the word? And it talks a lot about like being biracial and what that means. And I'm not biracial, but I feel like the things they said about being biracial are the same things I feel about being someone of color in America. So it's a very like beautiful book. It's a little bit long, and I feel like a lot of the middle part, it gets a little bit boring in the middle, but it's by no means like the whole book is boring or anything like that. It's just not a lot is going on in the middle. It's just the same thing back and forth, so it gets a little tiring. But overall, I give it 4 stars because it didn't make me cry or anything, but it was just really, I can't find the word. Like, guys, don't even, I can't right now. Then I have The Stationery Shop, and I'm pretty sure I've talked about this book like at least 100 times on my channel, and I will never stop talking about this book because it is so good. It is like, it's so good. It's not like your regular romance. It's kind of not second chance either. It's kind of like The One That Got Away, if you can think about it like that. It's about this girl whose name I always forget. Every single video I mention it, I always forget her name, like all the time. But anyway, this girl who lives in Iran, and she's like I don't know. She lives in Iran and she goes to this stationery shop like every single day, or like whenever she feels like it. And then one day she meets this boy and they fall in love and they're about to get married. But then a couple days before they get married, like they're separated and he sends her a letter or something saying like, I can't marry you, whatever. Then they don't speak for years. She gets married to this other man. She moves to America and marries this other man and then has kids. And then years later, like years, like they're older, their kids are like, off to college. And she meets him and she finally gets to ask him all these questions like, why weren't you there that day? Like, what happened? Why did we, you know? And it's so like, think of the book as like a love letter to love. Okay, that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. Then I have The Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. Yeah, I think that's her name. Anyway, it's a book about books, and it's very centric around this girl who works at this magical library. And I feel like it doesn't get more fall than that. But yeah, basically it's about a girl who works at a library, and one day I think she's accused of like trying to steal one of the books from this library. So she's like taken away. She's like, investigated, and she meets this guy, and they fall in love. And it's been a while since I read it. I do want to reread it soon, so I don't remember every single detail, but I know it's a book about books, and it's very centric around like this magical library, and I felt like that was just very fall. So then I have Every Last Word by Tamara Ireland Stone, and I like every book in this video. I don't know why I have to specify that. I'm literally recommending it to you guys, but it's a book about this girl who has OCD, and she's so like terrified of anyone ever finding out that she has OCD. Someone is calling me. Anyway, it's a book about this girl who has OCD, and she's horrified of anyone finding out she has OCD because she's kind of part of like the popular group. And then she meets this boy, and they join this club, like it's like a poetry club, and they like meet every couple days in the week during lunch, and they like recite their bad and good poetry to each other. And I thought, like, it's not just about the idea of like that, but it's about her overcoming like her fear of people finding out that she has anxiety and that she has OCD. And it's like the path to it and the romance is like really cute. It's a YA book, so it's like, it's the vibes. The last book I have for standalones is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I literally need to do my research before I make these. But anyway, it's a book about this girl named Catherine. Yeah. Kathy, something. Okay, it's a name. Okay, this girl with a name goes to college, and she has a twin sister, and they're really close, and they basically do everything together. Except her twin sister is very extroverted, and the main character, she's very introverted, and usually, her sister understands this, and so they do most of their things together. But now in college, her sister wants like her own friends, her own time, and now the main character feels very like isolated, lonely, and she also writes this fan fiction about these two characters. So yeah, it's kind of about like it's coming of age, and it's about her really like finding what she enjoys doing, who she enjoys hanging out with outside of her like family, outside of her sister. And I feel like it's fall because it's her starting college, and it has to do a lot with like that setting, that academic setting. So yeah, and also I never mentioned this book, and I feel like it was popular. It was for a while, and then I think her other books got more popular, and then she just stopped being popular altogether. So this one kind of went down the drain too, but I really, really like this book. It's not like Eleanor and Park. It's not like thinly veiled racism. there is no racism. At least there wasn't the last time I read it, but we'll have to see. But yeah, it's really quick to read. It's like, it looks fat, but it's a very thick book to, I mean, quick book to read. And it's very like, I don't know, it's very light. It's very like fun. There's not like, oh, you don't have to really think about it. It's just a very fun book to read when you have like a lot of things to do. I find that when like I have a lot of work to do, I really like picking up like a book I've already read, or a book I know is just not going to take up a lot of mental real estate, and I just like read it in the background. And so it's kind of like one of those books. Next, we're going on to series, and first I have The Divine Rivals, which I know is just one book right now, but there will be another book, so technically it's part of a series. And I don't think it gets more dark academia or like more fall than this, because the two main characters, Iris and Roman, they literally exchange letters to each other, like back and forth, like anonymous letters, except he knows who she is, she doesn't know who he is. And they send letters through this magical typewriter that essentially just like sends the letter itself, like it just automatically sends it to whoever has the other matching typewriter. I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense in the book. Anyway, so yeah, that's how they like get close to each other. It's also like professional like rivals, like workplace rivals, except she doesn't know that he's the person she's been writing letters to, and he knows that she's the person, but she doesn't know. And they're like rivals at work. And then we have a series that I will recommend until the day I die. Okay, like this series is my religion. It's literally what I base my entire personality off of. It's the best thing I've ever read in my entire life. And that is The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. And I know you guys are probably tired of me saying this in every single video, but this series is so good. It's the definition of found family, and it's definitely very fall vibes because there's a lot of like psychics, and there's a lot of like quests for this dead Welsh king, and the whole thing just reads very like dark academia, very chaotic academia, and just the energy of the book gives very fall. I think some of it takes place in fall, some of it takes place in summer, but if you read the book, like, it's a universal thing. I know you'll know what I mean. If you read the book, it's very, very fall. Then I have Witherword, which I don't know if I should consider this a series, because this woman, Hannah Matthewson, wrote Witherword, then wrote like kind of a sequel book, but it's kind of a spin-off with another character from the series, but it follows a completely separate like timeline and plotline. And so I don't know if they're related exactly. So she just dropped off the face of the earth after like writing these two like bangers. She just left. So I don't know if I should consider this a series, because both of them can be read on their like own. And she doesn't seem to be writing anymore because these books were written like years ago. And I don't know what's going on here, but Witherword is one of the most underrated books I've ever read. It's essentially about this girl whose name I forgot. I need to get better. But anyway, I should probably like plan what I'm gonna say before I say it on here. But no, I don't do that. Anyway, so this girl, she has the ability to like shift into animals, and she thinks she's like the only one, and she works as like a stage magician's assistant by using this ability. And one day her best friend is killed because I think the people who killed her are looking for her. And then she's taken back to this place where she meets a bunch of other people who can also do what she can do. And then she finds out she has a brother, and things start happening. I understand that made no sense, and every single thing that left my mouth was like detached from one another, but I'm not capable of like explaining books really well. I can like tell you like the basic plot, like whatever's written on the back of the book, but that's like the extent of my abilities. I'm really bad at describing books. Okay, especially like fantasy books. I just can't do it because there's so many things going on and I don't know what to focus on. So I hope that made sense. I hope that inspired you. It's very London 1800s, London, like dark academia. I'm saying dark academia for everything, but trust me, like if you read them, you'll get it. Then I have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, which was also really popular, and her new book in the series, it's a duology now, came out January this year. And it's very like chaotic. It's very dark. It's an adult fantasy, I think. I think it's an adult urban fantasy book, and it takes place in Yale, and it's very centered around like these houses in Yale secret societies. And this girl named Galaxy Stern, she is part of this one house called Leith. Leith? How do you say it? It's Lethe. And in my head it sounds right, but now that I say it out loud, I sound like absolutely insane. So, correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, she's part of this house, and her, like, I guess you could say kind of her, like, supervisor, her, like, pledge parent, if this was a sorority, he disappeared. Like, he's just gone. And she thinks he's in hell. So she starts making plans to go down there and get him. And that's really all you need to know. Like, it's Leigh Bardugo in Yale. Do the math. Then I have The Inheritance Games, which is like self-explanatory because it's cozy, it's a mystery, it's YA, it has found family. Next I have The Gilded Wolves, and this is a little harder to explain because you have to be in my head to understand, but it's very just the vibes, the found family, being in Paris in the 1800s. I think it's the 1800s. Yeah, around that time, and like the heist and the characters and kind of the literature and the plotting and also the very like historical elements to the heist. I think it just gives fall. I hope I projected that. I hope that made sense. If you read the series and you're like, what the fuck, that does not give fall, then you're probably right. But in my head, it does. So that's why I'm recommending it to you, because I feel like it's so underrated. There's like this very niche part of like the book community that like reads this book and talks about it. I feel like no one ever talks about it. It had like its run and then it just kind of died down, and I feel like it's very underrated, especially if you like Six of Crows. You're gonna like this book. Next I have Truly Devious, which was also pretty popular for a little while, but I don't think a lot of people read it because it is YA and it's a mystery series, and I know those aren't really like big. I think the one that got really big was The Inheritance Games and A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, but as a community we're not very mystery oriented, and this is very, very mystery centric. Like everything else is just in the background. Like the mystery is like the center of the story. There's no like romance or like found family stuff. There are all those things, but they're just like kind of put on the back burner. But it does take place at this boarding school, and it's like for gifted kids. It's for kids who have like these really unique talents or aspirations. And the main character, Stevie Bell, she joins this academy because she's obsessed with like solving this murder or like missing persons case that happened in this boarding school when it was like around the time that it was first built, and she's like obsessed with it. So she wants to come here and solve it. And that's what happens. And it's a 3-book series, but there are 2 other books. I think the 5th one just came out. There are 2 other books that are kind of the same characters. Stevie, mystery, but it's a different plot line. It's a different mystery. The first 3 books are all about the the main mystery in the boarding school, and then later it shifts. The 4th book is about a mystery in this camp, in a summer camp. But yeah. Next we have The Last Hours by Cassandra Clare, and the only explanation I really have for this is that I feel like all Cassandra Clare books essentially like collectively, just I associate them with the fall. And also, second, they're literally like autumn leaves on the cover of the first book. And I don't care if that's not sufficient enough for you. I'm not forcing you to read it, but again, this is in my head. It makes sense. Then I have Vicious by V.E. Schwab. And again, I don't talk about this book a lot, or V.E. Schwab a lot. I don't know why, because I love her writing. But it's a book about, it's also a series, it's a duology. I haven't read the second book yet, but I really liked the first book. It's about these two college roommates named Victor and Eli, and they decide for their fourth year med students, and for their final project, they're going to test the effects of adrenaline on creating EOs, which are like extraordinary humans. So they get the genius idea to kill each other and then bring each other back to life and see how that works out. Obviously, it doesn't work out because 10 years later, Eli is in Victor. Victor is in jail, and Eli put him there. And now he's out of jail, and he's like coming back to get Eli because something happened that we don't know, and we eventually find out. It's also found family, also very, I wouldn't say academia exactly, but it's like comic books in the form of an actual novel, and I feel like a lot of people would enjoy that. I don't know what about this actually gave me fall. This is just turning into like a recommendation video, because only half these books are actually fall books. The rest are just books that I associate with fall, which I don't think make very good recommendations. The last book series I have is The Diviners by Libba Bray. I read the first book of this series. I started the second book, never finished it. I don't know why. I think I just lost my momentum. But it's a book about this girl named Evie. I do remember her name. I know, guys, jot this down. It's a point. It really marks an important time in history, okay? But anyway, it's about this girl named Evie who is kind of banished by her parents to New York because she's like getting into all this trouble in her like town, in her hometown, and it's like 1920s New York, so you know the vibe. It's like, you know the vibe. So she's very much like a party girl. It feels so weird saying that, but that's basically what she is. And she basically, that's all she looks for. She just looks forward to like going to parties, like getting drunk, getting with people, whatever. So this girl Evie, she goes to New York to live with her uncle, who is this museum curator, and then she gets kind of roped in to this investigation of these murders, and they're very ritualistic murders, so her uncle is involved in it, which is how she gets involved in it. And Evie is also a diviner, which nobody really knows. Like, there are very few in the city, and essentially she can read objects. She can like hold an object and like tell you who had it before, tell you like the owner's history, or she can tell you the object's history. So that her ability, there's different types of diviners. Like, the entire cast of characters are diviners, and they each have different abilities. There is a bit of a love triangle, and there is found family, and it's very like homey, it's very like cute. I got a little freaked out, not gonna lie. Is that even a word? I'm going insane right now, I don't know what I'm saying. But yeah, it gives very Halloween vibes. It has that like spooky, like eerie feeling, and I really enjoyed it, and I really, really need to read the rest of the series because I heard it's really good. And that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Bye!